see how many people join, and then we can start. Okay, I think we can start. So good morning, everyone. I'm a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Francesca Sperandio, and I'm a junior project manager at the European Network of Living Labs. And today I'll be the one guiding you through this session about the Living Lab approach for vulnerable communities. Before we dive in, just some housekeeping rules to run things smoothly. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded and it will be published on the knowledge repository of the Living-in-EU project and on the CommuniLab. So if you don't want to appear on screen, feel free to switch off your camera. Then keep your mic muted during the session when you're not speaking. And if you have anything to add, please raise your hand or write in the chat. And last rule, that is the most important one, is that all interventions are equally valid. So please feel free to share your thoughts, especially during the Q&A, because all voices matter and we want to hear your thoughts. So what we are going to do today, we are first starting with an introduction to the Living Lab and to the Living Labs methodology. Then we will hear three stories about the Common Living Lab, the Social Digital Lab, and the Thess-AHALL. After, we will have a panel discussion and then the Q&A, in which all your opinion must be shared. And then we will finish this session. So now I will leave the floor to my colleague, Alessandra Tricarico, for the introduction to the Living Labs. Alessandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Francesca. Nice to see you all here. Indeed, I'm Alessandra Tricarico, and I'm the Deputy Head of Network in ENoLL. And Francesca, I cannot actually change slides, so I will just tell you to go to the next one. So before delving into what Living Labs are, I just wanted to briefly introduce you ENoLL, the European Network of Living Labs. Probably some of you already know us, but I'm just here to tell you that we are the European Network of Certified Living Labs, and we have been founded in 2006 under the European Presidency of Finland. And since then, ENoLL facilitates a lot of joint actions and knowledge exchange. Francesca, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. So the goal of ENoLL is to promote the Living Lab concept, to influence policies, to enhance the Living Labs, and also enable their implementation at the global level. So even if we call ourselves European Network of Living Labs, we are actually quite global right now, because our focus has grown from European side to an international community. So by now we have more than 170 members across 5 different continents and more than 39 countries. And historically, we also certified more than 500 Living Labs. So next, our vision is to be the leading organization empowering the global development of Living Labs, while our mission is to be the ambassador of European values of co-creation and open innovation in order to foster the capacities and the knowledge of our members, but also potential Living Labs and external stakeholders in order to increase their opportunity to grow and also to create value. And in line with this, we offer different services. Among these, for sure, we have the certification and labeling, which for us being the only institutional body entitled to assess the maturity of Living Lab, it's really a seal of quality. So all Living Labs that want to be certified actually needs to undergo to an harmonized evaluation framework that we developed thanks to and with a lot of Living Lab experts. That is actually a tool that helps us to assess the maturity and the stability of Living Labs that are able to demonstrate a consistent use of the Living Lab approach. Together with this, we also have a comprehensive capacity building program with a lot of trainings and courses that are tailored to the needs of our of the people that join. That can be either entities and professionals that are interested, for example, in creating, establishing a Living Lab, or entities, professionals, organizations that want to just increase their expertise on the Living Labs methodologies and tools. And of course, we do participate in European projects. So that's also a huge part of our network. And finally, we do have a lot of working groups that are active. By now, we have more than 10 working groups that are actually where the knowledge exchange, the collaboration on topics is happening. So we have, for example, working groups spanning from agriculture to soil, energy, mobility, education, water, and so on. And having said that, this is also, next slide, please. We also have a map just for you to know that actually we are global. So this is the global representation of the Living Labs or our members that are based everywhere in the world. We hope to, of course, increase the numbers and have more and more Living Lab in our network. But by now, we are, of course, also present in Canada, for example, in Colombia, in Australia, also Japan, China, and so on. So that is also just to understand where we are located. And now we can just start our brief journey actually about Living Labs. So by saying what are Living Labs and what are not. So next slide. When we think about Living Labs, we usually think about spaces. As for example, in this case, we have the venue of one of our members that is located in Istanbul, Turkey, that is Başakşehir Living Lab. But of course, it's not enough to have a place. We do need to have people. Next slide, please. So when we talk about Living Labs, we of course need to take in consideration all the interactions that are happening around it, all the dynamics that are happening, the co-creation processes that involves the end users, and also all the innovative solutions that we are co-creating with and for our community. So next slide. Let's see now which is the ENoLL definition of Living Labs that has actually been recognized more and more at European and international level. So Living Labs are open innovation ecosystems that are operating in real life environments that are based on a systematic user co-creation approach that integrates research and innovation activities in communities and placing the citizen at the center of the innovation process. I know it's a very long definition, but as you can see here, we have some elements in bold. So we are going to see much more in detail which mean what it doesn't mean every element. But for now, I also ask you to have a look at these two figures. So on the left side, we have the fundamental elements, the essential blocks of a Living Lab. And then on the right side, we have the quadruple helix. So we are going to talk about this a lot during the following slides. So by now, let's start on the following slide to see what we mean by Living Labs are open innovation ecosystems. So in the context of a Living Labs, both the open innovation and the user-driven innovation are really key principles that guide this collaborative and participatory approach to research, to do innovation in real-life environments. So for example, Living Labs facilitate the open innovation by providing this platform for various stakeholders, including, of course, citizens, researchers, businesses, government, to collaborate and to co-create solutions instead of just relying on internal resources. And at the same time, Living Labs are also emphasizing the user-centered innovation by actively involving the citizens and end user in the co-creation process. So this means also that with Living Labs, we try to ensure that the resulting innovations are really tailored to the real needs and preferences of the local communities we are working with, for example. And also what we say usually is that with Living Labs, the end users, the citizens needs to be active actors of the process, not just passive factor. And since we talk about a lot about people, let's go to the following slides. Yes, so Living Labs are operating in real life environments, as we mentioned, but of course, we're also needing people. So as we mentioned before, just click another time, Francesca, please. Yes, so as mentioned before, we don't need just spaces, we need the people, the interactions. So let's see, for example, an example of what we mean by that. Let's go to this following slide. Yes, so for example, here we have a urban setting, and let's see what kind of actors we could involve in this setting, whether we are operating in an entire city or in a neighborhood or I don't know, in a complex of buildings, for example. So in order to have a living lab, of course, we will need different people, different actors, as for example, just Francesca, go on. Have fun in clicking. So we can have a public administration, some urban planners, of course, the infrastructure and technology, because technology is playing more and more important role, of course, in living labs, but also we should have academics and researchers, some real estate professionals. And what we're missing here, of course, the citizens. If you click another, okay. So again, they are the earth of this innovation process, the ones that in the end, they are probably going to benefit from all the innovations that we are creating, whether they are tangible or intangible. Let's have a look at another example. This case, this time we are in a health sector, in a health context. So here, for example, we could meet a patient, then we would involve a doctor, a nurse, then a psychologist, of course, the family of the patient. Again, here, for example, we have a wearable sensor. So again, technology is playing a huge role. And for example, the ethic manager. So these are just, of course, examples, but what we would like to underline here is that we need people, yes, but according to the context, we need to have the right people. So we need to choose wisely, let's say, the stakeholders that we want to engage with according to the context, according to the mission, the scope of the Living Lab. But what we would need to be sure about is to involve the quadruple helix. So to have an holistic view of the society. And talking about the quadruple helix, that's what we mean by Living Labs are based on a systematic user co-creation approach. So this means that not only citizens, of course, are really important. They are the heart of the innovation process, but we do need to have a wide range of important actors, including the business sector, the civic society, the education and research sector, and of course, the public sector. So we need to have this holistic view of the society, but what is really important to underline here is the role that Living Labs can play, because they can be the intermediaries, the orchestrators between all these actors, the ones that are facilitating the connection between them. So basically, they are the ones that are actually helping to have all these different actors with their own agenda, their own strategic objectives around the same table, even if it is a physical one or not. And next slide, please. Talking about this holistic view of the society, all these actors involved, this is just a funny way of telling you all for one and one for all. This means that there is a basic element that needs to be there in a living lab setting, in a living lab ecosystem, that is trust. Because in order to have your stakeholders engaged also in a long time, of course, it needs to be a trusted environment. And let's see also now that we have seen what are living labs, let's see also what is not a living lab. So there are some concepts that usually have been confused with living labs. So other innovation spaces, let's say, that can have some elements in common, but then they are really missing some fundamental blocks of the living labs, starting with, for example, test beds, also called pre-living labs. So in this case, we're talking about labs designed to test scientific research in a controlled environment. So here we are missing, for example, the living labs, the real life context. So in addition here, the users are mainly researchers and academics. So again, we're missing the holistic view of the society that we need. The second concept is a fab lab or fabrication laboratory. So in this case, we have a small scale laboratory that is mainly specializing in the digital manufacturing, and the aim is to develop technology-enabled products to mass production. So again, we are not dealing with specific context, specific problems in this case. And finally, the home lab. So basically, when the concept of living labs started in America, they were targeting and they were creating laboratories as real houses, replicas, in order to construct a lab to research daily activities, daily actions in the home life. So again, here we had, for example, volunteers, participants that would relocate in these replicas of the houses in a limited period of time in order to test new technologies designed for the home environment. So again, we have a sort of real life environment, but in this case, we had participants that were brought to a new environment, not their local one, let's say. So let's start now by talking about the main building blocks of a living lab. So the figures I asked you to focus on before under the living lab definition. So we basically have some 6 essential building blocks in a living lab, which are the co-creation, the real life setting, the multimedia approach, the orchestration, the multi-stakeholder participation, and the active user involvement. And let's see one by one what we mean by this, even if some of them we already mentioned several times already. Let's start with the first one, that is the co-creation. So I'm sure, Francesca, you can click another time. I'm sure already you know what we mean about co-creation. I'm sure you're already using this approach in your daily activities, for example. But what we mean by co-creation, we mean it is a collaborative and participatory approach to innovation, of course, that involves different users, stakeholders, researchers, in order to design, develop, and test new products. And of course, this process may involve a range of methods and tools, as for example, participatory workshops, survey, interviews, and so on. The second element is the real life setting. So here, as we mentioned, Living Lab operates in a real life setting of the end user, creating and testing innovation into their real life instead of moving, for example, the end user to the test side. That is what was happening, for example, in the home lab in America. Then we have the multi-method approach. So here we need to say that each living lab activity is problem-driven. So also every methodological approach that we are using is targeted and tailored according to the specific problems that we are trying to solve and specific people that we are involving and the context we are working in. Then we have the multi-stakeholder participation. So again, we have this holistic view of the society. We need to involve stakeholders from the quadruple helix, again, government, academia, private sectors, and citizens. Then we have the active user involvement. So as we mentioned before, we need to involve a series of actors, but in an active way. So also what is important to say here is that in Living Labs, we also try to collect feedback because Living Labs are operating thanks to the iterative process. So this means that it's also easier to just test, develop new solutions, but also go back and adjust our strategy and actions according to the feedback that we are collecting. And finally, the orchestrations. So Living Labs are really operating as facilitators, are orchestrators between the within the ecosystem in order to connect and partner up relevant stakeholders. And having said that, we can also see how a living lab can actually operate. And it is important to say that if you go to the next slide, Francesca, please, that a living lab can operate on 3 different but interlinked layers that are the macro, the meso, and the micro level. So when we talk about the macro level, we are talking about the organizational level of a living lab. So where the private-public people partnership is happening. Then underneath, we have another layer that is the meso level. So here we are talking mainly about the projects that the living labs can work on, of course, using the living lab methodologies. And then under the projects, of course, we have the micro level. So all the activities, all the small tasks that we are running under this project. So what is important here also to say is that, for example, in our network, we only accept living labs that are operating at macro level. And this is because there is a difference, of course, between a living lab and a living lab in a project. And if you go to the next slide, Francesca, please. So what we need to say is that living labs, of course, can operate at different levels, but our definition of living labs, we need to say that they are there before and after a project start and ends. So this is because, as we mentioned before, in order to be successful, living labs need to actually build a trusted environment that will be then lasting over time. And also at operational level, at methodological level, next slide, please. There is a difference between living lab and traditional approach, for example. So in a nutshell, when we use a conventional approach in a project, we always have a predetermined strategy, a method, a central top-down decision-making approach. While in a living lab approach, we usually have a more flexible environment, a more dynamic environment, a collective one, of course. So for example, let's make a more concrete example. So if we are trying to improve a street and we need to plant some trees, for example, in a traditional project, we just go to the municipality, for example, they take the decision and they go on. While in a living lab, with a living lab approach, then we try to actually involve the community to see which are the real needs, and we also try to have a long-lasting impact with the solution that we are trying to implement there. And now let's see why and when using living labs. If you can go to the next slide, Francesca. Actually, next to, yes, thank you. So when using living labs, so they are, let's say, the best tool and they are particularly effective, of course, to have innovation, to use the co-creation approach in real-world context. And also they are the best tool to address weak problems. So we are talking about complex, difficult problems that actually require different perspective and different actors of the society in order to be addressed. So for example, we are talking about the climate change or social justice, educational learning, or health and well-being, for example. And they are the best tool, let's say, because of this flexible and adaptable innovation process we have talked about. And also, let's see the why. So without entering into specific detail of each element that you can read on the slide, let's just say that living labs, since they are offering this real life environment and they are co-creating solutions and they involve all these end users across the entire process, this of course will allow us to have a faster innovation cycle, but also a higher acceptance rate. So of course, because the solutions that we try to develop will then meet the need of the final user. And then this, of course, is linked to the risk of the innovation, while at the same time also driving the societal impact. So let's go now and see which are the main type of living labs that we can meet. So let's start by saying that the concept of living labs actually started as a way to improve our research, and the innovation were conducted in the ICT sector mainly. So in the beginning, the living labs were mostly used in technological and industrial environments. But then over time and since the 2000s, Living Labs started to expand their approach, and they have been applied to many different fields as the health, for example, but also in the urban development. So one of the first examples that of Living Labs used in the digital field in cities, for example, that was this idea to connect people and to use internet in order to digitalize the city. So what we can call nowadays, for example, smart cities, actually also originated by and with Living Labs in some cases. And over time, the Living Labs have also been applied to an incredibly wide range of contexts, and specifically in the recent years, more and more on the education, rural development, environment, but also agriculture and soil management. So this is also to show you how flexible Living Labs can be, and they can cover different topics, different focus. And also, it is important to underline that these categories are not exclusive, of course. So a Living Lab can have different focus. And on the right side, for example, you can see which are the main areas of focus of the Living Labs in our network. And again, these are not set in stone, let's say, because of course, as we welcome more members, of course, new expertise and new focuses will be also added to this also wide list. And going to the next slide, we can also say that Living Labs can be differentiated and categorized also according to the host organization that they have. So Living Labs can be hosted, for example, from the academia or research center. They can be hosted from government. So for example, from municipalities. They can be hosted from the private sector, or also from a partnership between private and public sector. Let's go to the next slide. Just for you to know that also we can classify Living Labs also according to their objectives and ambitions. So for example, in our network, we have Living Labs that are more focusing on grand societal challenges, Living Labs that are more mainly focusing on inclusive societal engagement, Living Labs for policies, governments, collaborations, Living Labs for businesses and emerging technologies, and also Living Labs as campus or university Living Labs. So again, just for you to see how flexible these Living Labs can be. And I know I actually ended my time, so I will be briefly going to the conclusions. I just wanted to invite you to check on our website the different types of Living Labs that we have. You can read their description, their areas of work. You can actually filter across the countries, types, etc. But you can also have a look at our members catalog in the next slide, please. Thank you. So every year we publish a member catalog where we have a collection of all our members, description again, areas of interest, and also you will have some main contacts so to know more about them. And actually, next slide, please. Every year you can actually have the chance to meet our members at our flagship event. So every year we have this conference. It is an international conference where our members hopefully will be again this year with us. This year will be in Andorra la Vella from 30th of September to the 3rd of October. And the theme of this year is Living Labs for Regenerative Futures, Connecting Local and Global Innovation Ecosystems. We do have a really nice setting this year because we are hosted by Andorra Living Lab, which is actually a Living Lab as a country. That is not something that you can see every day, let's say. And finally, the last slide. Yes. Oh, yes, of course, you can see all the information about the conference on our website. And I just wanted to invite you to have a look at this ENoLL booklet that is a recent publication that we published as ENoLL about the Living Labs, the origin of the movement, and also future perspectives. So if you're interested about Living Labs, this can be a nice occasion for you to have a look at it. And I know we will have some presentation from our members, some of our members, so you will also have the chance to have some practical examples. Thank you so much. Sorry for being over time probably. And if you have any question, you can also contact me.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. And now I will leave the floor to Jeroen. So you can share your screen and with your presentation.
Okay, so here we go. Can you all hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us to this workshop, because getting hard to reach people involved in our program in Comon has been a goal from day one. When Comon was founded by 4 major organizations here in Ghent. Ghent University, IMEC, the City of Ghent, and Ghent Public Library, we all came together in this new building. It was called the Krook, it is called the Krook, with the main shared goal of wanting to make the city a better place through technology. And at first we thought just being in the same building, that was going to do it. The building houses a public library and the shared coffee machine. So we thought, yeah, this will work. But it rapidly became clear that it wouldn't. And this obviously goes back to what Alessandra said in her talk. So we needed something else. And that's something else that became Comon. And let's see whether I can actually change the slides. There we go. Comon is our citizen participation platform and the living lab for all people of Ghent. Together, we try to make Ghent an even better place using technology in the process. And you pronounce Comon as come on because we emphasize doing and making over endlessly talking, etc. Just to give you an idea of the scale of Comon, we're small but committed. The core team is actually 1.5 full-time equivalents, but it's supported by people like me because our organizations think it's important that we contribute. And that's what every one of our partners does. They contribute extra people whenever they can, or they release staff, some extra budget, etc. And at Comon, we work thematically. Which means that there's always one central theme we're working on. For example, our first cycle focused on healthcare communication. How do we make sure that our patients and our medical doctors understand each other? The second one explored how we can make active and physical movement throughout the city more pleasurable and fun. And today we focus on parenting with confidence, because we know that that's one of the main challenges within our city. And we focus on these themes for every time for 1.5 years. We do it together because every 18 months is 18 months of collaboration. It's helping our partners and other forces in the city to achieve their own goals. And our approach obviously is built in design thinking and urban living labs. So compared to our earlier efforts around the coffee machine, which were really ad hoc, we now follow a step-by-step process, a really goal-driven process. So what does it look like? Well, first, we go beyond the library itself and we meet people in their communities and we help them frame challenges. Secondly, we pick one challenge and we try to understand what it means for the different stakeholders. Thirdly, we organize make-a-thons with school kids, with students, and frankly, everyone who really wants to join. And together we build real solutions. And these solutions, finally, we will experiment with them, bringing together people who can really work with these prototypes. And here you get an overview of everything that we're doing. And as you'll see, in each step, we include our target audiences openly and actively, but there's always also attention to vulnerable groups. For example, at the very start, when we define our priorities, we map the concerns in Ghent, and we don't do this ourselves. We did this together with all of our different stakeholder organizations. And for example, we also involve civil society and, more importantly, neighborhood coordinators. And we also follow up on signals from frontline workers. As you can see here on the website, they're all collected by people in the city. In our first 2 cycles, we also spoke directly with the citizens of Ghent to better understand their challenges. Because formulating a challenge, it's not easy, and you have to help these people to do that. Take Francine's comment, for example. She came in and her challenge was really direct and strict. It was Ghent stinks. And nowadays, it's very easy to dismiss these kind of voices. Take, for example, if you're a Democrat, it's very easy to say, whoa, but those are Republicans. It's just gibberish, whatever they are talking about. But for us, it's important to listen. What is behind it? So we learned, for example, that Francine had been censored on the city's Facebook page and that actually her communication wasn't clear. True, but her frustration about a local community garden, that was real. And so we helped her to come up with a real challenge for our city. So that's the first insight. Obviously, it's not enough just to listen to people. You need to listen actively, and you need to help people express what matters to them. But that's not enough, because in our society, it's not the vulnerable people themselves who set the agenda, sadly. Therefore, we connected each of these people also to people from the local government or to people from the university to back their challenges. So here, take Peter. He's the one using the wheelchair on this picture. He's 26 and he wanted more chances to exercise. Well, we could just have Peter's picture up on the slide, but we connected him to someone else, to Bert, who is now the main local policymaker on sports. And together they talked about this issue and they agreed that perhaps the core challenge was to make better use of public space in order to create chances for Peter to sport more often in the city. So as you can see, we collected all of these types of messages and challenges on our website in order for people to help us select a challenge. So people could really vote on each and every one of these challenges. And while we still believe in this process, like the whole idea of listening to people, amplifying their voice, connecting them to other people, we did stop using this type of public vote. Why? Because while it sounds democratic, we couldn't always follow through. This kind of living labs, it only works when we can mobilize enough expertise in our own organization to really support the outcomes. And so a vote could point one way, like how can we make walking football more popular, while we didn't really have the expertise to really support that kind of question. So we don't do it that way anymore. What we do now is we pick a challenge ourselves and we stop the window dressing. We just start with our launch event and ask people's opinions and their lived experiences and go from there. So what's very important for us is representation. So whenever we pick a new team, we also take a figurehead for it. And for our very first team, that was Leyla Yüksel, a doctor with Turkish roots. For us, that was really important. But it doesn't stop there. We always try to remove additional boundaries. So with the launch of each program, we also go out and give away free coffees in exchange for people's stories. And in the last cycle, this really helped us to connect, for example, to a lot of homeless people who in exchange helped us to gain new perspectives on the problem. And as you know, after this challenge phase comes the problem phase, the phase where we explore and try to understand the issue. And to do that, we host matchmaking events to bring people together. But communication between the different stakeholder groups in the quadruple helix isn't always easy. So for our vulnerable groups, we organize, so here you can see a picture, by the way, of the kind of events that we organize to when we bring together people. As you can see on the left of the screen, we really focus on connecting people, making sure that they find each other afterwards. But because it's hard to find the vulnerable people and to connect them really in these activities, we also hold stakeholder work. Don't know how to translate it in English, really. We call it klankbordgroepen. And what we do is, for example, this is an organization of local groups that can meet together. And here you can see a picture of one of these groups, and they can follow through their own process. It's up to them. They can follow the Comon process, or they can just set their own goals. And for example, in our parenting stress team, which is what we're working on right now, that means that these people could choose to go to organize a family day, go to an amusement park, for example, rather than participating in a Comon activity, because that's their top priority. And these vulnerable groups, they don't meet in the Krook, actually. because while the city, the library is central really in the city, it's not really where people work. So we go to them. We partner with others, and we partner with others to make this work. Because we could do this ourselves, but then the trust really isn't there. So we use other organizations to help us to organize this. For example, through AHALL, we reach newcomers who don't speak Dutch. Through Blinkout, we connect with people who are easily overstimulated. Through Young Ghent in Action, we meet with youth who often hang around in public spaces. And we really learn that it's best to fully embed these groups within existing partner work. Because our projects, they are temporary, and it's almost unethical to start a new group that we know that we can't sustain. And anyway, these groups already exist. So they may just lack support, they may just lack recognition, etc. So if we can help them with that, if we can provide that, perhaps that could be a great solution. Now, alongside all of these efforts, we also host a solution phase after a lot of desk research, follow-up, and interviews about the future, because you don't want to come up with solutions that don't stand the test of time. We go to a solution phase, and in this solution phase, again, we try not just to involve all of the Ghentians, but to really focus on the vulnerable groups as well. For example, while we do invite a lot of people to the Krook, to our central building to help us, we also organize things that really help us to connect to these vulnerable people. Take the school program, for example, where we get children involved. We could easily do an after-school program here in our Fab Lab, and it would work amazingly. But what we do is we go through the schools, because then we can reach a lot of difficult-to-reach children as well. For example, here you can see Anaïs, and she made glasses that make you, if you put on the glasses, it always looks like it's shiny outdoors, so you feel like sporting. But all of these kids, they come up with new technologies, new ideas, etc. And for us, this means also selecting those schools who are often left behind. Why? Because the children don't speak Dutch very well, or because there's children with behavioral problems, etc. For us, that's not really an issue. We do invite them. Actually, we prefer these kids. Yes, we do also let them use the heat guns, and we also let them use the power tools, etc. And sometimes that's a bit more difficult than with other kids, but we believe that this really matters. And just to hear it from one of the teachers, she told us, wow, these kind of activities, normally our school, we're never asked to participate in these kinds of activities. It's always the white middle class, etc. So you can see they come up with fantastic ideas to help us improve the city even better. And what we also did is, well, what we also noticed that in a lot of our make-a-thons, for example, that we organize together with other citizens, it's always the same people that stand up. It's people who dare to stand on the stage. It's people who, even though by making things we connect to people, it's always the same kind of people that we find there during our activities. And it's people who like to explain stuff. Like we also invite local, national radio to come and comment on everything. But we missed a number of voices there. And one thing that we did, especially when it's in a competitive environment, by the way, so one thing that we did was organize microfinancing as well. So these microfinancing, it's whenever you have an idea, you can come up to us on the website, put in your idea, and you get 250 euros. It's not that much, but we also don't judge your idea. So it's not a group of white men telling you what would work and what wouldn't. It's just you have an idea, great, you can participate. And so, for example, we had one woman who came to us and said, oh, I've always wanted to be like the host at weddings or at funerals even. And then her husband turned around and said, I've never heard you talk about that. And it's trying to get those people, those kind of voices heard, that really helps with the 250 euros. On the other hand, our bookkeeper, he's not really a big fan of this idea of handing away free money, because he says, computer says no, but it's in our job then to make sure that this works. And let me finish by just focusing on the micro labs that we then host. So after all of these great ideas, we get together and we organize micro labs. And other than in typical living lab projects where there's often an open call where people can come in and say, we have this great idea and we're going to test it, and we give them some money. For us, we try to bring together the people ourselves. So it's often an entrepreneurial type that we match with an academic type, and we match with someone who has lived experience actually. And this really benefits whatever we're doing. Take Dirk, for example. You can't see him on the slide, but Dirk is a person who came in. He was a pain patient, and because of his pain, he had never been able to work in his life. And when we asked Dirk, what are you doing here? He said, I don't know. I've been sent by an organization, and actually I've been unemployed all my life. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. But throughout this process where he got together with the other people, and they got a design workshop from us of like 5 days, and together they stood on stage, and they came up with this watch, which you can see on the slide, which helps you to communicate your pain levels to your doctor. And now Dirk has something that he can use to help his fellow pain patients to express whatever they're feeling. And now if you ask Dirk, who are you or what do you do? He says that he's an inventor. So for us, that really means that we can change people's lives while making technologies. And Dirk's story is definitely not the only one. We also created other technologies like Revonk right now, where we connected a nurse who's actually already retired, an oncology nurse, together with an entrepreneurial student, etc., to create an app that helps people to sport more after that they've had cancer. There's a tool that translates your medical doctors or medical reports to explain to understandable language. And mind you, this was before ChatGPT. There's tools to help you find the right psychological help, or even a tool that helps you to, well, it's actually a tool for the hospital that calls people in their own language to remind them about their hospital appointment. So in order that they actually come there and they benefit all of the health benefits. And for the hospital, they can save some costs, because if the people don't show up, they have paid for an interpreter while it's not really necessary. So, and then there's like boxes that we put in parks where you can lend out sporting materials, etc. So I think this leads me to the conclusion that we can make all of this kind of stuff, and we do this, but there's and we do need to think about all of the different ways that we can help vulnerable people and attract vulnerable people and get them involved. And one additional way, and I'm going to end on this note, that we do this with is in our public engagement. So when we organize activities here in the Krook, we also take this very seriously. For example, yes, we host the type of debates that you can see all over the place, but we also do different things to attract different audiences. For example, organize debate groups in Arab, in Turkish, in English about the specific topics. There's lend out people in our library. So at certain occasions, you can lend out people who can tell you their stories. And we organize events like how does a doctor's visit look like in a different culture? How does raising children look like in different cultures, etc. So I think that really sums up my 15 minutes. But to conclude, it's been a roller coaster. There's been a lot of effort to get people involved. We have some things that work here in our communities, others that we have stopped doing because they don't work. And I'm really excited to learn from the other projects as well. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jeroen. Your presentation was really insightful. And now I will leave the floor to Clara. You can share your screen.
Thank you very much. Are you seeing my screen? And can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here today because this session and this SEM joins both of my backgrounds here today that are innovation and social care. So I'm Clara Garcia, an educator and anthropologist specialized in digital well-being and social innovation. So thank you very much. It's very interesting to be here And I've been hearing what you just explained in Ghent, and I think that this is very interesting, and we have a similar way, I think, to work and to apply the innovation, but we can discuss it later. So very briefly about Suara. Suara is a non-profit cooperative. And as you can see, we are managing more than 280 services with people through all ages, all the cycle of life. You can see here a little bit our services and our activity that, as you can see, is very wide, from childcare in broad sense of meaning, from preventive services to highly specialized ones, people at risk of social exclusion, families, education, homelessness, occupation, and wide package of services oriented to the elderly, from residential services where people live to home care services too. So we defined 5 years ago our challenges as a cooperative, and these are our challenges. Innovative, that we had always this on our mind, but at the beginning it was difficult how to apply it with the stakeholder, as it was mentioned before. And for us, innovation is to transform ideas into projects, and one of the examples we have is how to transform the home care sector into a more sustainable service. We have great expertise in home care services too, and it was on a little bit our goal. So we founded 10 years ago. We launched the Suara Social Digital Lab, first based only in Barcelona, but you will see after that now is in different places in through all Catalonia. This is a laboratory of social innovation, and our first aim was to promoting and facilitating distributed innovation so that all the people of the organization innovate in their jobs position. That was only at the beginning, and it was like an first step innovation, but I would say now with 10 years later perspective, it was a closed model, not an open innovation. And now so since 5 years ago, we try to incorporate new methodologies as design thinking in the innovation and learning processes above all. And then we start to facilitate co-creation spaces with workshops, hackathons for the development of new projects and services for the care people with a digital basis. So our perspective is always with a person-centered approach model of care and innovation. For us, it's very important digital inclusion too, to reduce inequality and promote autonomy, co-creation with all stakeholders and end users involved from the start, from the beginning of the creation process, and a commitment to evaluate, learn, and adapt continuously. So before I heard, I don't remember the name from the one who did the first presentation, but I was writing not only the people, but we need the right people to participate, and this is not always easy. So this was a little bit. So we want to be the support lever for the digital transformation and social economy organizations and creation of services with social impact. So, but this is very easy to say, but very difficult to then take to a level very practice and to apply what you are saying all the time. This was a challenge at the beginning. And the way we have to get this cooperation, we have already talked today about this innovation ecosystem with quadruple helix. And this is not anymore a particular way, but a way of understanding and working on innovation. And it's through this methodological approach where the collaborative model with third parties, experimentation, knowledge generation, and the development of digital solutions connected to reality is the basis of the activity. No? So, and with this perspective, we started to try to open our innovation processes so they became more collaborative and a truth space for experimentation and open to the public. And then we started with this methodology that we developed called Cool Thinker. And then we start to train colleagues from our company that had no receive no kind of building in the innovation field. And then we start to train these persons so they can start to do their own buildings or co-design workshops buildings in their own services. So our goal was that we are not the ones, we and my colleagues in my social digital lab, the ones that go in each service to make these workshops, so they can start to detect their own needs and implementing their own workshops with the people they are working with. So the aim for me would be that they are not needing me anymore. So this will be the most interesting thing. So I'm leading the pilot test team, and in the pilot test we carry out, the end users are the main protagonists. For this reason, we allocate resources to properly introduce the pilot. So if the people that are gonna try and test these new tech solutions don't understand why are we doing this and we don't share our goal together, then it has no sense at all. So we always ensure that participation is voluntary, of course, and meaningful for all of them. So participants receive continuous support through the pilot from expert professionals that have a building process too, so they can accompany the person who's gonna participate in this pilot test. And then they are also involved in the evaluation of the pilot together with the rest of the stakeholders. Okay, as I mentioned before, we have been in this framework from home care transformation for many years, and now it seems to be very likely to change in the near future, not only in Barcelona or Catalonia, but in Europe, I would say. There's a population aging increment that will require more professionals, with a strain on public budgets and families who find it difficult to pay for the services when there is an increased need for care. Due to this complicated situation, we are wondering how the home care model could be sustainable for all of us and in our future. And then we try to test different new tech solutions with this, so we can find a solution with this challenge. Okay, this is one of the projects about social and assistive robots. And our work with social and assistive robotics, we introduced robots in care environments to support elderly people and people with dependency, but instead of simply deploying the technology, we involved users, families, and professionals from the very beginning. We held co-creation workshops and testing sessions in home and daycare centers, and this made a huge difference. We learned that empathy and trust are essential for technological acceptance when people are part of the design process, and their openness to the innovation grows. I would like to share an example from a recent pilot test we carried out with a home assistant robot, because during the pilot test, we realized that the robot had been designed for large spaces, while most of the people we work with and who participated in the pilot, of course, live in small homes where the robot kept bumping into things all the time. So some may consider this experience a failure, but from my point of view, it's actually a successful example of a pilot that truly places that person at the center. So the problem is not the person and the building, of course, the problem. Then we have to think about a new design from this robot. A second experience is the use of immersive reality to support emotional well-being. In collaboration with a tech partner called Brooms, we brought immersive environments into care homes. Residents help choose the content and formats through participatory sessions, and nowadays they are the ones that are making their own content because they can record it with a 36 camera. And the experiences were tailored to their cognitive and emotional needs, and we saw how personalized digital immersion can have therapeutic effects and foster emotional connection. And finally, we also work in rural areas in southern Catalonia to reduce the digital divide in social services. Here, our living lab focused on training sessions, collaborative design, and adapting services for older adults and families, we found that technology should never be the center. It must serve the creation of relationships and the guarantee of rights. So also working closely with the territory and knowing the community's dynamics was essential. And in fact, nowadays, they have their own social digital lab. Obviously, without our collaboration in Barcelona, because it has no sense that the social digital lab based in Barcelona make their own workshops to apply in the southern Catalonia in another territory. That has no sense. So about our outcomes, for us, we realized that vulnerable communities are not passive recipients. Everyone knows that, but this is very difficult to get into reality and having this perspective always. So they are key actors in designing solutions that affect their lives. And vulnerable communities are not passive recipients, neither. They are key actors in designing solutions that affect their lives. Like just I said, this is easy to say, much more difficult to put into practice. And one of the main challenges we always face is time. So I would like to discuss maybe later about time needs, and because in my experience, time for people to become familiar with new proposals, time for participation to be based on trust and meaningful relationships, and time for processes to include qualitative follow-up, not just technical validations. And I feel that sometimes this time that we need is often not the same as the timeless set by the startups or by the funding calls or the public administration. And this is yet a challenge nowadays for me when I'm trying to implement new pilot tests and co-design it with this view. So one of our outcomes is that building trust and human connections are essential, especially when introducing digital tools. And here again, we find the time challenge, I think. And another outcome is that living labs are powerful because they bring technology back to reality, grounding it in real needs, everyday routines, and community dynamics. We've noticed that more and more companies and small startups are reaching out to us nowadays to participate in the validation of their technological solutions, because they've realized that without this step, their proposals don't make sense or simply don't go anywhere. And sometimes we've had to turn down collaborations when, after engaging with the people we support, we've encountered resistance or clear rejection of the proposed solution. And I was very, very quickly talking, but I think it's very useful if we have time to discuss about this challenge, these different time agendas that sometimes are difficult to match. So a little bit. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. I will leave now the floor to Despoina from Thess-AHALL.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. You can share your screen. So.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, good morning, and thank you for your kind invitation. I'm Despoina Mantziari. I'm a research associate and PhD candidate in the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation, part of the School of Medicine of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And today I will share with you the case of our living lab, the Thessaloniki Action for Health and Wellbeing Living Lab. It operates for over a decade. And it is currently leading the health and well-being working group within the European Network of Living Labs. It's one of the effective members of the network. But first, let's give a quick overview, the big picture. As mentioned, we belong to the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. We are a university and research-focused living lab, stemming from the School of Medicine, and particularly from the Lab of Medical Physics and Digital Innovation. The Aristotle University of Thessaloniki is the largest university of the country in terms of students, staff, but also in a number of different specialties, number of schools, and also research and excellence. Our lab is also one of the biggest labs in the university and the biggest one within the medical school in terms of research and innovation activities, excellence, as well as staff. It comprises of 10 different working groups, research groups, covering different thematic and research areas, particularly focusing on new technologies in health, as well as on medical physics, medical informatics, and medical education. The focus of our living lab, and this is in a nutshell, the journey of how it has been evolved, started from the need of developing technologies, digital health solutions, and particularly technologies, in order to enhance the health and well-being and independent living of a vulnerable population, with a special focus to older adults. So back in 2014, without even knowing back then about living labs and their concept and how they operate, and all these great methodologies that Alessandra presented at the beginning, we had a project within which we had to develop and test some serious games regarding the physical activity and cognitive activity of older adults. So we needed a control environment on the one hand, so as to avoid the sterile environment of our lab, of a clinical setting. But on the other hand, we wanted to keep it both realistic but also controlled. So we looked for ecologically valid settings, and we built within our lab a space that resembled with a room, with an older adult living room, but it wasn't. So the story began from a project. We were a project-based at the micro level, as Alessandra mentioned. We were a project-based living lab. However, while we were getting informed of the European Network of Living Labs and tried to have a connection with the network and know-how transfer, we realized the real value of the living labs. We got more familiar with the methodologies and tools, so we tried to explore even more what we do within the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and we find a little later, 6 months later, in November 2014, we officially established our living lab. First, it was called Thessaloniki Active and Healthy Aging Living Lab, because its main focus was on the active and healthy aging of older adults. And we developed even more the real life setting within the within the lab environment. So we developed even more the physical infrastructure to resemble into an advanced home, not just a room of older adults. Again, equipped with sensors and cameras and new technologies, where we could have real-life context experimentations with citizens. But again, it was still a control room. So then we realized the need to go outside of the lab setting and apply the Living Lab methodology regarding co-design, co-participation, co-validation of the developed solutions with and for our participants at their everyday living spaces. So we enter their real homes, we turn them into real life experimentation settings, and we tried there to see in 100% realistic conditions how the technologies we developed could enhance their everyday living routines and conditions, and if they have an impact in their overall health and well-being. Year by year, we started to get more projects and to collaborate with European consortia, where we explored even more the need of going out to the society in order, on the one hand, to co-create the requested from the project's solutions, but even more to co-test them, not just to co-create them. So we continue our synergies with the local ecosystem here, and we start collaborations except for citizens, individuals who open their homes to turn them into living lab experimentation settings, test beds, also with nursing homes in collaboration with the municipality of Thessaloniki and other cross-border municipal collaborations. We started collaborations also with daycare centers as well as with hospitals, where we established our technologies and asked people just to keep continuing with their everyday living routines and their everyday living activities, just behaving normally as they do, in order for us to measure the real life impact of the technologies and the solutions proposed. And there some SMEs came to us here from the local ecosystem, realizing because we were the first Greek Living Lab, they started to realize the impact of them and the social innovation impact, also the business impact that the Living Lab could bring for them. And they asked us to collaborate so as to provide the Living Lab as a service for them in order to reach people, to co-experiment with them, and to validate their products and services in real life contexts. So then it became our certification for the first time as a HERE member of the European Network of Living Labs, and there started a great journey, which is until today. Even more projects started to come and bring more value to the Living Lab. The long-lasting memories is one of the highlighted moments of our Living Lab, because the whole idea of creating platform with games for cognitive training and physical training starting some years ago, it came now true with the help of older adults who participated from the designing phase until the validation, testing, pivoting, even the business exploitation phase. Currently, the project has ended for almost a decade now. The product co-created with citizens remains a real service, a real product that is sold to daycare centers and nursing homes across the country. Until now, we have piloted the solution with more than 3,500 older adults as well as their caregivers. And we have opened this ecosystem of collaboration to other regions in Greece and also in Cyprus. And this was the huge value that the Living Lab approach helped us to gain, because it was the real engagement of older adults in the whole process that made the product so valuable and also scalable to other regions. Older adults started to realize that their participation was not just for testing or trying something and just sharing their feedback, but it was a core part of the whole activity. The long-lasting memory thing was the first highlighted moment, but several other projects and solutions followed. Year by year, we also realized the educational impact that the Living Lab approach has, not only for us as researchers or for our participants, because it's also a matter of educating citizens in order to participate in such kind of activities, but how valuable it was also for our students. And year by year, we cultivated the ground here in the university, and we managed to put Living Labs as one of the core methods of medical education within the undergraduate and postgraduate programs of the School of Medicine of the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. We also exploited tools like patients as educators. So within the Living Lab context, we invited patients, chronic patients or older adults we work with, to sit together on the same table with our medical students, our future medical workforce, and even from the very early semesters of the undergraduate program, to work together to understand the real needs of real patients, real older adults, not just in theory but in practice, and envision together solutions and co-test together the solutions, so one to learn from the other. In the beginning, it was quite challenging because students was a little bit hesitant of working with real people on real needs, and a little bit afraid of the expectations they could create. On the other hand, older adults and chronic patients were also hesitant because they perceived the academia and students like an elite of experts or future experts who do not really want to hear of the real problems and collaborate with them. But the result of these synergies has been, because it's something that it's in progress every year, quite remarkable, and really innovative solutions have stemmed from this multi-stakeholder and multidimensional synergy within the medical school and the Living Lab. The community, the local community, is of course an integral part of our activities and the Living Lab. We collaborate with local stakeholders, not only individuals, but also with daycare centers, as mentioned before, patient associations. We organize with them special days to increase the awareness outside to the community, and also within this context of the awareness days, we try also to cultivate a fertile ground of collaboration with the university and the Living Lab. So we try to understand and listen carefully to their needs, but also to tell who we are and how we can collaborate as mutual collaborators, as mutual partners, in order to develop useful and impactful for them solutions that's stemming from them and they are developed for them. Later on in 2017 and 18, two new research initiatives came to our lab, where we exploited 100% the Living Lab methodology. The one was the Captain project, where we started to apply the agile development methods and Scrum methods, but pivoted a bit in the context of living labs and social innovation, where we tried step by step to build from the very beginning a digital coach for older adults in order to tackle social isolation and to support even better the everyday living conditions of older adults, especially those who live alone. It was a dynamic process applied not only in Thess-AHALL, but in 3 more living labs across Europe, where we step by step listen to older adults and their needs, and we tried to build the solution. We didn't have something, even a preliminary idea of how this digital coach could be. This was 100% a result of our collaboration. Even our some initial thoughts that we have of promoting something like a robot or a digital coach within at home, they were older adults were negative towards this idea, so we pivoted the whole thing and we built something from scratch with them and for them. So they finally chose a non-intrusive coach. They asked for using the technology, but as less as possible, in a way that it would not change their everyday living style or not to interact with a machine. So we tried to use micro projectors and pico cameras just to project on a table or on the fridge some key messages on specific days and hours selected by older adults, sharing specific contexts developed by them. And all this came in collaboration with more than 70 older adults participated here in the Living Lab in the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. We call them collaborators, and they shaped that year in 2018 an alternative research group within the university, a citizen-led research group who developed the Captain technology, who tested the Captain technology and embraced it into their homes. So we selected 40 out of the 70 older adults' homes to put the technology there and test it for 6 months. And this research group created so strong bonds, not only with the Living Lab, but also the members among them, who asked for more synergies and more activities because they felt the sense of belonging in a team, and also the sense of offering back to the scientific community and to the society. So the Cisco project, who started a year later than Captain, tried to explore even more these bonds and how this alternative group collaborates and how this can create impact for both the Living Lab and older adults' lives. It promoted a lifelong experiential learning program, an academic year during which 45 participants from the community, older adults again, along with some mentors from our Living Lab, worked hand in hand, applying the scientific research methodology. We also engaged medical students in this, and we tried in a simpler way to apply every step of our research work so as to put them in our shoes and bridge a bit the gap among the society and the academia, and also bridge the gap of the stigma that older adults might have because of ageism or other stereotypes, as well as the stigma of the academic and research community that it's a closed elite that just design solutions or experiment solutions without taking into account the real needs of the society. And here you can see, if you want, some of the results of this alternative research group, because they promoted real solutions. They developed and promoted real solutions back to the community, and the city of Thessaloniki embraced them, and the School of Medicine too, applying them. Even today, after 6 years after the completion of the project, the solutions are there. In the meantime, year by year, we gained even more know-how exchange and experience from our participation within the ENoLL European Network of Living Labs. And as mentioned, currently we are one of the leaders of the health and well-being domain. And back in 2021, we started a new collaboration with the Living Lab community. The ENoLL coordinated the Huge Horizon 2020 project, where we also had a leading role, the Vitalize project, where the idea was to try to harmonize across Europe and beyond the health and well-being living labs methodologies, processes, services, and try to see them as real research infrastructures and how they can enable in a systematic way research innovation across Europe. The value was quite big for us in Thess-AHALL because it helped to our maturity even more. We put all the experience of the previous years in a framework, in a context, in processes, and currently, except for the smart home, which has been developed even more through the years, we have even more physical infrastructures where we exploit all the methodologies and tools of the Living Lab Toolkit. One of them is within the General Hospital here in Thessaloniki. It is a transitions living lab. It resembles again like a smart home where we put patients or older adults after prolonged care within the hospital for a short period of time to see if they are ready to go to their real home. And we ask them to spend a couple of hours or days within, again, a controlled, ecologically valid setting that resembles a real home, but it's not actually a real home. We also have smart hospital rooms equipped with cameras, motivation and motion monitoring sensors and cameras to monitor patients. We also have opened more our infrastructures outside of the city and within the university. We have a close collaboration with the Museum of Casts, where people go and have sensorial experiments there. We see how arts can help the health and improve the health and well-being of older adults and chronic patients. We have even more technical infrastructures. This is a special infrastructure that we have in the Living Lab regarding the rehabilitation. It resembles the conditions that astronauts have outside the atmosphere, and we use them for cardiovascular diseases and also other stroke and other rehabilitation purposes. And over the years, we realized that as the Living Lab develops, also the community becomes larger, and this is, of course, a big value for us, but we need also processes and rules on how to manage all this community. So in collaboration with the Vitalize project and the European Network of Living Labs, we managed to develop back in 2023 our panel management platform, which is available through the European Network of Living Labs to its members. This helped us a lot to keep track of all the different networks, citizen groups, as well as infrastructures that we work or own in order to improve even more the impact for our work. And 3 years ago, we repurposed the Living Lab because we do even more than just active and healthy aging for older adults now. So we now cover health and well-being in a more holistic way. And we opened even more our synergies and collaborations, and except for the museum or the clinical and research infrastructures that we own, we collaborate with several other actors here in the local ecosystem of Thessaloniki, turning the entire city and the university into an experimentation playground, as we call it.
Sorry, Despoina, if you can wrap up.
This is my last slide. The last achievement that we are currently exploring is the development of the first patient-led living lab that comes as a result of the PECAN project. Here we put vulnerable population groups, and currently we are working with cancer patients even more on the focal length of the living lab. We give them the floor to be the ones who will do the data setting and also the co-creation and co-development of solutions. So patients are ahead and we follow. And this is something that it's still under exploration, but we think it's a promising idea because at least at the local level has impact, and we hope that we will have even more to share with you in the upcoming years. So this is it from my side, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Despoina. And we will move now to the panel discussion. My proposition is to make it together with the Q&A. So if you have questions, just start writing in the chat or raise your hand. In the meantime, I wanted to thank you again because of your insightful presentations. They've really shown how Living Lab approach can actually engage vulnerable communities and tackle societal challenges. So my first question was to Jeroen, and something that really stood up when you were presenting was this phrase that you said, that was actively listening is the key. It's just not listening, but actively listening. And I think it's the key also to build trust with the marginalized communities. And my question to you was actually how, what aspects of the Living Lab methodology were crucial in building the trust with the marginalized communities you worked with?
It's a difficult question because it's about building trust, but it's also about expectation management. Because we, as a Living Lab, as Comon, we continue existing, but in 1.5 years, we will move on to a different topic. So when we go on, when we build a relationship with you as a person, that must be clear for them. We're here to help you out. We're here to like really stir the fire on this topic in the city. Within 1.5 years, that will be finished. So it's about, do we want a relationship with these people themselves, or do we want great relationships with the organizations that work with these people on a day-by-day basis? And it's a bit of both. So on the one hand, when people come to Comon, they have to feel at home. They have to feel like their voice is heard, that we help them to express their voices. But they also need to know that when Comon is no longer there, these other organizations will still be there. And for some groups, it works really good to have this direct relationship with people. Like with the elderly, that works perfectly. They come to the Krook, they talk to us, they are opinionated, especially the men, to be honest. But then if you go to other target groups, which are like the people with a migration background, who speak Arab or Turkish, etc., who live in the border around Ghent, that's much more difficult. So there we really need to go through external organizations and work with them. And there the question always is, what's in it for them? Because we can use these people in our projects, and we want to be inclusive, and we want the solutions to benefit them. But sometimes they're not lying awake from this particular challenge, or they have different needs, etc. And so it's all about teasing out what they really need, and often what these organizations need as well. Because, for example, setting up another discussion group with vulnerable people who will be working together for 1.5 years, etc. If you ask it to the organizations working with these people, they will tell you, but we already organize these kind of groups. We already do this, and these people already meet. No, we're not going to do an extra group, but you are welcome to come in to our group and help us out, because we have this one question that's been like circling back and forth in this group, and nobody ever paid attention to it. So if you can come and put a megaphone on it and help us to promote their ideas, etc., then you can come. So it's always a bit of give and take. It's not always very easy, to be honest. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I think it also links to what Clara said about the difficulties in involving the challenges in involving the marginalized communities. You have been mentioning also a problem with the agendas, for example, and could you please tell us a little bit more about what you mentioned earlier about the challenges?
Yes, sure. And maybe it's easier if I share some examples. For example, yesterday we had some meeting workshop where we and with my colleagues from the Social Digital Lab, from the social area from our cooperative, invite our colleagues that are not in innovation but are leading the different services to help people. And this case yesterday was in resident center cares for elderly people. And we usually do this twice or a year, so we can share our goals, but their goals too, their needs, and what are they detecting with their teams and the people they are working with and for. And when we finally end the session, some of the colleagues said to me, why are not the elderly people here today? Okay, so because in our sense, it was meeting time, so intern meeting time. And for us, it was okay. We are seeing since many years ago that we have to share our goals, and not only share, but to think about our goals together with not only with the professionals, but with the participants in each project too. But with this concrete session from yesterday, it was very difficult to try to find some day with everyone. And I was the one who organized it. And I assumed that for the elderly people, it was very difficult to come to the office. But this colleague from residents, the center care, said to me, why don't try it. So you can, of course, we are invited to go to the residence centers, but you can invite them, and you should not decide. So that's what I thought after this new input, that I decided for these people that they are not going to be able to come to the office, but I didn't ask. So, and since a lot of years thinking about this innovation with all the stakeholders integrated and making a lot of workshops, working in the territory. We have an office in our social digital lab, physical office, but I'm not working there, but that has no sense. But even though yesterday was this thing to happen, I think this is a good example. Jeroen, maybe you would like to say something? Yes.
Yeah, because I really like the idea of getting the people involved themselves. But it's not always easy either, because we experimented with that, and then you bring in like 20 professors, and then there's 20. Well, no, it's always a bit less, like 10 people from the industry, and then there's some citizens, etc. But not all citizens, they are really eloquent. They're not really used to discuss in this kind of format, and often they have a need, but their need is just to talk to someone. And then you bring them into a context where you have to have a productive meeting, and they really take their time when they start talking, etc. So we noticed like there's a tension there, because you really want to hear these people's voices, but you also don't want to. For example, if you have in a meeting, there's medical doctors there, and they have to be back in their office in an hour. It becomes harder. So on one hand, it's working on making sure that the doctors understand that it's valuable to be there. That's one thing. But on the other hand, often it works better to collaborate with organizations that bring together these kind of vulnerable people in groups that really express their interests, and they are more used to expressing those in like shorter sentences, etc., which is sometimes necessary. So it's always looking for when is it appropriate to get them involved, and when is it appropriate to speak to the organizations that really represent them.
Yes, because yesterday I thought if I invited them, I'm being technocentric or innocentric. But on the other hand, that was this possibility that I didn't think.
And my next question, in the meantime, is to Despoina, because we were talking about these challenges, no? And you were mentioning many examples in which you engaged local authorities, business researchers, and other stakeholders in the co-creation process. But were there some examples of a really positive and unexpected outcome, for example?
Yes. First, regarding the previous question, I fully agree with Clara and Jeroen regarding the challenges. This is the part that we all face, the engagement and sustainable engagement part. And the case is also the same for the rest groups. It's not only the citizens, but also to engage the students, even more the policymakers and experts. Because they want to see the value, and especially policymakers and the local authorities, they are positive, but they always ask in advance for the value, for the impact, for numbers. So yes, through the years and with much personal effort, we have managed to put them on the same table. One of the most important achievements has been the idea with patients as researchers, as living labbers, which is the latest concept. has been embraced from the regional health authority after working hand in hand with them and the cancer patient associations here in Thessaloniki. We managed to put the Living Lab as one of the patient navigation and patient advocacy tools, vehicles within a public hospital, an oncology hospital, Agio Savas, it's the name. And the other thing, only because they worked hand in hand with them for over a year and they realized the impact of the process. And the other thing has been the close collaboration with the municipality every year in smaller activities, even asking for a space to organize an event or engage them to a workshop or put them together with citizens again at the same table. We managed to achieve an official collaboration with city, signing an MOU and creating the Urban Living Lab here. So now, except for us, there are so many other teams who are interested to use the Urban Living Lab and co-explore their challenges and their questions. So it's a matter of cultivating the culture, I think.
Yes, indeed. It's really a matter of cultivating the culture, and I think it sums up a little bit everything. And Kelly, go ahead with your question.
Hello, thank you guys for your wonderful presentations. I've learned a lot. Just for some quick context, I'm a master's student studying digital ethics and policy, and I did my undergrad in engineering. So I've worked at like the intersection of technology and society in a lot of different ways, and it's really cool to learn about living labs because that's sort of exactly where you guys are as well. And one question that came up when Clara was presenting is, you mentioned that there are times where you turn down projects and partners because the groups that you're working with sort of reject the solution, or they don't like the technology, they don't like that approach, and you're able to like turn that down. And I'm curious, for the other two living labs, have you run into that scenario before where in the process of engaging with citizens, you realize that technology that you guys have been sort of developing or advocating for maybe is fundamentally misaligned with what your participants are telling you? And I'm curious, like, have you run into that scenario before, and what happens then? Like, how do you guys navigate that tension?
Thank you. This is a very interesting question, Kelly. Nice to meet you. So when it's about elderly people, time, as I said, and communication is very important. And we realize that is it better if we are not the ones or the startup who are going to present the project, but people that they already know. It could be the family, if the family is taking care or helping this person. And many times that usually is the caregiver that visit this person at their own home. And what is very important for us is to train these caregivers that they have no experience in innovation. And so they can get to know these new tech solutions and the aim that we have, and they know that the aim is shared with the person, because we are always looking for increase their wellness, and that they remain at home and their own homes as long as possible. And this goal is their goal, not mine as pilot test leader, and this is important. And what it works, usually works too, is to share experience. So to organize some meetings where people that already had some experience with some robot or sensor system or wearable like an e-watch, and then can share this experience for other people, same age or similar situations, and to explain, okay, is it okay? No matter, this was my experience, maybe it could work for you. And we always sign not a contract, but some information that we adapt to a language that it should be easy and never technical one. So every end user and everyone that is gonna participate can understand how is gonna go everything, and that in every moment from the process, from the beginning till the end, this person, of course, obviously can say, hey, I don't want to participate anymore. I'm not feeling well, or I don't like it anymore. You don't have to give some reasons, but the reasons are always interesting, and they are very interesting for all the pilot tests too. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Thank you,
Yeah, I have
Clara.
some thoughts as well, but Despoina, perhaps you can go first.
Just to share our experience, of course, the core concept of the Living Labs is based on the democratization of research and innovation. Of course, we are open to adjust the solutions to the real needs or to co-design them from scratch, as mentioned in some cases, with the citizens. However, in order to be realistic a bit, in terms of funded projects like the Horizon Europe ones or the Erasmus Plus ones, where we have time constraints, resources constraints, it is fair, and we try to be fair and transparent to people without just promising, okay, that we are here, we can do whatever you want with the way that you want. This is not the idea and the concept of Living Labs. It should be a realistic solution. Of course, we respect that you do not like or dislike something. We will adjust it, but sometimes it's a little bit limited, the level and the depth of how you can change something, without meaning that you do not respect people and their needs and their requirements. And the Captain project was the main example, the core example of how we deviated from the initial proposed the Commission. We had described as researchers a potential solution X, and at the end of the project we deliver a solution Z, because that was what people asked. And this was not negative to the Commission. The Commission welcomed this because it was a deviation that created more impact for the whole society and the community.
Yeah, for us it's a bit different because we don't work on a project basis. We have our own programs that we run, and they are always bottom up. So that's the main point. So indeed, when Francesca asked earlier, like what are the Living Lab ideas that really support working with these vulnerable groups, etc. Well, it's obviously if you work with a design thinking kind of approach as well, it's within the process to try to be empathetic with people who are really experiencing the problems that you have put at the center of attention. And in the main phase, well, the first phase is trying to understand the problem, and then you can come up with what it really means for these stakeholders to experience this problem, etc. So they are involved from the very beginning. But obviously, when we do these kind of exercises and throughout the 1.5 years, there's many activities that we host, and it's often with different people. So yeah, it can be the case that one group who works on a specific solution to the problem, that other people don't like it. That can be the case. And we try to be, on the one hand, not to be the main gatekeepers, because then it's the typical highly trained people telling other people what will work and what won't. But we do organize something like, we call it a wenselijkheidsdebat, and it translates something like a desirability debate, where we bring in people and we ask them to evaluate the things that have been thought out by other people. Mainly to see whether, yes, we can make all of these technologies, but do we really want to? And the methods that we use to have these kinds of conversations, it's often very hands-on. We use, for example, the tarot cards of tech, which is, you can just download them. You can Google it, you'll find them, asking questions like, but what will happen when this tool falls in the hands of someone with bad intentions? Or did you really consider, what would Mother Nature say when she was your main stakeholder, etc.? So all of these kind of questions coming up. But we noticed that people are not really rejecting the ideas. Why? Because they have co-created them, because there were experts involved. And when we use the word expert, we always refer to three types of experts. It's academic experts, it's people who have the lived experience, and it's practitioners. And because they have been involved, we see that there's less resistance in the end. One problem that we do see is that people are too kind for each other. So if students, for example, come up with this new idea or a new technology, and experts come in and they want to give their opinion on the tool, they are often too polite. They don't. They have all of this knowledge. The students obviously don't, or another group who made a specific idea or a tool, and then it becomes. Then we are looking for how to create this really safe environment to have this kind of feedback that makes sure that whatever comes out of it really benefits everyone and is really up to par with the current research as well. Have we experienced that people really rejected tools that have been developed? Yes, and we think it's a great idea, because for us the tools are not the endpoint. So the social impact is not, hey, look at all of these spin-off companies that now exist, but it's also about how the creation process, and for us that's the most important part, sparked discussion and led to new insights. For example, when we made a tool to match people with psychological healthcare and with the type of healthcare professional that they really wanted, afterwards, some of the professionals said, yeah, but it's not the people they want, it's the people they need that they should have. So the whole project turned around, and even though these people who developed the tool are still like trying to come up with better solutions and to sell the tool really, other academics have picked it up to use it as examples to stir discussion and to go and talk to policymakers, etc. So yeah, it can be that sometimes a solution is rejected, but then again, that's part of the process, I guess, and it's part of the capacity building that you're doing in the city. Because for us, it's, like I said, it's not about spin-offs, it's about making sure that everyone in the city, if you want a smart city, you need smart citizens. And so we want people who, whenever they're doing their job, like as a nurse or as a firefighter or something else, and they're seeing opportunities, that they now know, I can call some people who are really keen in technology, who are really keen into the ethics sides, etc. And together we will build this. We won't wait for Elon Musk to build something for us. We know that we can do this ourselves. So it's all about the capacity building for us.
Thank you. Those answers were exactly what I was trying to understand. Thank you, guys.
And are there any other questions, or we can, I think, wrap up at this point? No other questions? Okay.
There is a question, Francesca.
Okay. Yes.
Maja?
Yes. Hi, everybody, and thank you for your presentation. I'm a researcher, Doctor of Engineering in Egypt, Ain Shams University, and I'm taking this point in my research, the Living Lab in universities, Campus Living Lab. So I have through many researches and papers done before as a literature review, but I always come to some point I didn't understand well. It's about the economic and financial resources. How do you get this, and how do you contribute or distribute this point among the stakeholders, the Cordable Helix, about public, private, and citizens, students, maybe researchers, how they are involving in this financial point. Do they have revenues? Do they have just participation? Or this point particular, I didn't get it from all the researches before. And thank you.
Okay, let me just quickly say how it's done in Comon. So the finances for Comon, it's based on the partners who just put up some money on the table. And to be honest, the biggest efforts they put in is the personnel, the staff. But when we collaborate with people, obviously these people, they come up and they volunteer and they come in and they help us to come up with new solutions, etc. What we do as Comon is we give all the IP back to the people who have actually collaborated, and that's but obviously it's not really IP, it's copyright, but that's only really relevant at the end of the cycle. For us as Comon, we see ourselves as like pre-incubators, so that's people coming up with ideas, etc., not really companies. That's at the very end of the line when we bring together people who really have this entrepreneurial spirit and really want to develop something and make a business out of it. And then we talk to them up front, so it's often small groups of like 5 to 6 people, and we talk to them about their roles. What kind of role do you want to take in this? When we develop this tool, and then they all agree at the very beginning and at the end of the cycle when they have a working prototype and they start really developing a company, we come back to that agreement and we say, well, this was everything that you put in at the start. This is what we are now. How are we going to distribute the IP? And we give it all away. So as Comon, we don't take a share of anything that is being produced. So, but I think it's too soon to talk about money because they're not really making money at that stage. But it's true, whatever they're doing at Comon, it's all on a voluntary basis.
Okay, thank you. But I was talking about the economic cycle and the sustainability 3 spheres, the social, the environment, and the economic. So how I will start any project or any idea without taking into my consideration the economic cycle, because sometimes it just be a boundary to facilitate or to begin anything. So thank you for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think it's time to wrap up this session. Thank you all for your contribution. And thank you to our speakers for their amazing presentations. Just a quick reminder that you will find the registration of this session on the knowledge repository of Living-in-EU and on the CommuniLab, a platform that has been developed by the CommuniCity project, in which you will find tons of materials that can help you also in improving. Oh my God, the table is moving. Okay, that can help you improving your project implementation, also speaking and exchange knowledge with others. So with that, I wish you all a beautiful day, and I hope we will see you soon in another maybe session.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.